to Exotic Car Play Place, and today I'm going to ask everybody out there if you could just subscribe before we get started. Understand, of course, that I will be providing a service, and that service is information about supercars, the way they drive, the history, reviews, and in this case we will be talking about how to budget for your first supercar. Now, of course, secondly to that, I'm assuming that you're new to the supercar world. I'm assuming that you are a first-time buyer and likely a young person, probably under the age of 25 years of age, and likely you are going to be, maybe even possibly late teens. Here we are to explain to you today how much to budget for if you're looking at a Lamborghini Gallardo as a starter supercar. I've had a lot of questions, people asking me, how much is it going to cost me to buy a Lamborghini, and how much do I need to budget for, and what is my monthly payment? Well, let me explain a little something here. First, before we get started, those questions that come up about how much does a Lamborghini cost are great questions. The problem is it doesn't paint the whole picture. So here we are today to paint the picture for you, to give you an absolute breakdown. And I could not, before this moment, find any one video that would summarize the entire package better than this. This is the best compilation of every breakdown. We're going to talk about the dollars combined for all expenses for a typical Lamborghini Gallardo, and then we will summarize it at the end and compare it to some dollar figure of an actual income that I've had people ask me questions about, whether that is adequate to support the ownership of a Lamborghini Gallardo. So let's get started, everybody. I've had questions, how much does it cost to own and operate a 2004, 2005, maybe a 2006 Lamborghini Gallardo? What is your monthly expenses? And this came from a young fellow. He makes $50,000 per year. And with $50,000 per year, his question was, do I have enough in my budget to pay for this car? Can I support this car? Well, that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to talk about that. So let's start from the beginning. Let's break this down. So first of all, $100,000 is a rough estimate for an average early model Lamborghini Gallardo, an early model. A model that is probably in decent shape, because yes, you can find them a little bit less than that, 70, 80,000 US, but those are not great cars. To get into a half-decent early model, you're going to spend $100,000 at least. So let's start with $100,000. And let's assume that you're going to spend that $100,000 and borrow it over about a 6-year time frame. Well, a 6-year time frame at a reasonably solid interest rate. Let's break this down, shall we? So if you break $100,000 down with a sizable interest rate into 72 months, which is 6 years, that comes out to anywhere between $1,600 to $1,800 per month for the car loan itself. So let's just stick with the $1,800 to be safe. Let's round everything a little bit high, because that way we know that we've got their bases covered. So $1,800 covers you for the expense of the initial purchase for the Lamborghini. That is your monthly payment. If you've seen previous videos of mine, you'll know then for sure that we have insurance costs. That's the second part of this equation. Insurance costs can vary quite widely depending on your record, how old you are, where you live, and a bunch of other factors. And for a person of a younger stature, maybe this is, they haven't been driving for a long period of time, my estimate would be somewhere in the range of $2,400 to $3,500 per year. Well, let's just go $2,400, because I've seen some even less than that. I've seen some down at $1,800. So let's split the difference, and we'll call it $2,400 per year for insurance. Well, you divide that up into 12 months, that's $200 per month. You divide that into 12 months, that's $200 per month. So now we take the $1,800 from the loan, the $200 for the insurance costs, And now we have to consider the next factor. This is fuel. Fuel costs. Now let's assume, okay, you're a young person, you're likely going to be using the car a fair amount. And if you're using that car a fair amount, I think it's fair to say that you're going to consume at least a tank, maybe close to 2 tanks of fuel per week. These cars aren't great on fuel, so let's say a tank and a half. 1 tank of fuel could be about $70, $80 a tank, or a fill up, you have premium fuel. So let's call that $100 per week. That's a tank and a half. $100 per week, that's $400 per month. That's the next part of the equation. Then let's move into the yearly service. We have the yearly service of a Lamborghini can actually cost you a fair amount of money, but let's not talk about repairs or damage or any of that kind of stuff right now. Let's talk about the year-to-year, back-to-back servicing that you might be doing. Typical stuff is just the oil change, and every once in a while you might do the diff oil and things like that. So let's just incorporate that and average that out, and we'll call it $1,200 per year. An oil change, if you have somebody else do it for you, is probably really only $400 bucks. But again, there's other service factors in there, and if you're going to do antifreeze, you're going to do a brake flush, things like that. Little things like that, fluids from time to time. Let's blend it out and call that $1,200 per year. So that's another $100 per month. If you break that out on a yearly basis, $100 a month for service that you would spread out over the course of the year. So then again, so now we've taken the loan out for 6 years. The 6-year loan, we have to assume a 6-year ownership at that point. Let's assume that person has borrowed for 6 years, they're going to keep the car for 6 years, and after that time frame, well, whatever, the sky's the limit. You might keep it, you might sell it. But let's talk about, in that 6-year time frame, what you might expect for expenses and for servicing. Well, let's get into this. So tires. In a 6-year span, I think it's fair to say you're probably going to replace a full set of tires, at least one set. That's $2,500. You break that out, and that becomes a much smaller amount over a 6-year time frame, and break it down further into a monthly basis. That breaks down to about $35 a month if you spread that out over the course of the 6 years and spread it down to a single month basis. The next thing, of course, is brakes. Brake job on a car like this is somewhat pricey. It's not astronomical, but you can count about $4,000 US dollars, of course, for brake job for one of these cars. And if you count $4,000, divide that up from the 6 years, divide it further into a monthly basis, and you get $55 per month. So now between the brakes and the tires, you are about another $100 per month combined. So then let's go one step further. It's pretty safe to say these cars consume clutches. They're not great on clutches, they never have been. The newer versions of the clutches are much better, but you must understand that a clutch is very expensive on these cars. And you can count about $7,000, $8,000, and we're not talking about doing any actuators, e-gear lines, or e-gear pumps. We're not talking about that stuff. We are assuming that stuff's okay. Again, we're not incorporating substantial repairs, which can actually add up. We're talking about kind of typical maintenance, assuming you have a reasonable amount of luck. So let's do a clutch. In a 6-year span, a clutch is a high probability that you will wind up doing. And so in a 72-month span, you break that $8,000, $9,000 bill down, and that becomes another $100. So that becomes $100 for that clutch. Over the 72 months, every month you can add another $100, assuming you're going to eat a clutch at some point during that 6-year lifespan. So now that brings us up to the grand total. Let's tally up all these numbers. So you add up the cost of the loan, you add up the cost of the insurance and the gas. Let's talk about the tires and the brakes and the clutch, and we'll add all those pieces up. Well, the grand total, and we're being relatively conservative but fairly realistic at the same time, I think you can assume this is going to be fairly close. Your 6-year ownership costs per month to buy that $100,000 early Lamborghini will come out to approximately $2,700 US per month. $2,700 per month. Now, let's take this to the next step. So this caller asked me about, if I have $50,000 of salary, do I have enough money to buy and own and operate that Lamborghini? So let's back this up. Let's divide that $50,000 typical tax rate. I know where I live, we can expect probably a 35% tax rate. So your $50,000 gross salary becomes about $30,000 after tax earnings. That $30,000, divide that further into that time span, divide that into the 12 months, and that now becomes $2,500. $2,500 is less than the estimated cost of ownership at $2,700. Therefore, our rough estimate of $50,000 gross salary income is not enough to support a Lamborghini Gallardo of $100,000 value and maintain it properly should you be encountering some sort of repairs or unexpected maintenance along the way. That would not likely be enough to support that. Not even if you're living in your parents' basement, not even if you're assuming no other life and you're living in the car. So I think we all know that that's not necessarily the best way to live. If you truly want to buy and own this car and maybe just have enough to maintain that and a few bucks to, go out on the odd weekend, extra above and beyond with your friends, you can probably assume that you need to gross at least $60,000 to $70,000 US to make that threshold. And that will give you some buffer space in there. Again, that's assuming we're not talking about mortgage payments. We're not assuming you have children to support. We're not assuming that you are paying for all kinds of other expenditures that aren't related to this car. That's assuming that you really don't have a lot of other expenses. So I mean, all those other expenses really do get tacked on top. So we won't even talk about that. So truly, again, if you do own a home and you're doing some other things and you have other expenses, maybe you're married and you have children, you could pretty much assume that you probably need at least a good 6 figures, well into the 6 figures, to truly own and operate this car. Now, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. It certainly can be done. A lot of people stretch. And you know what? If you find a car that you know is of good value and you won't lose money, it's an even easier pill to swallow. So why not maybe take that chance? But again, what you don't want to be doing is buried in debt. That's the last thing you want, because the last thing you really want is to regret and resent that car. You want to enjoy the car. You want to enjoy it for what it is, be able to take it out, not worried about putting or being able to afford a tank of gas for the car and enjoy a night out on the town. That car has to be a toy. It has to be fun. So again, I hope that helps everybody. I really don't want to discourage anyone. As a matter of fact, this video is here strictly to show you, what it takes. I want to be realistic. I don't want people to have buyer's remorse. I don't want people to resent these cars. I don't want people to have serious regrets while they're in the midst of ownership. These cars really are a lot of fun, and I really do strongly encourage you to buy one if you can afford it. Absolutely, they're a ton of fun. And I do strongly recommend the Gallardo. It is probably one of the best values in the supercar world today. Ferraris are going up. They're creeping up in value. The Lambos have sort of bottomed out and are sort of holding their own right now. I do expect them to eventually start creeping up as well. But right now they are actually quite a substantial purchase. Very good value. So everyone, I really hope this helps you. I summarized the budget, the monthly budget that it takes to own and operate a Lamborghini Gallardo of the early variety, 2004, 5, 6, maybe even a 7 or possibly an 08 if you happen to get a steal of a deal. Likely you're going to buy an 04 to an 06. That's likely going to be the make, model, and year that you're going to afford in that $100,000 range. So again, everybody, I really hope that helps. If the budget dollars don't help, at least this video hopefully was enough information for you so you can make some educated decisions and expect some of the unexpected costs that do arise when you own one of these cars. So be sure, don't forget that tap that subscribe button right below there. Comment. I'd love to hear comments from everybody, not only from new buyers. I'd love to hear comments from existing buyers. Maybe you have some exception to some of my rules. I would say these numbers that I've expressed are very, very close. Again, there's going to be some deviation. I'm strictly giving you a budget estimate. An estimate on each one of the major factors that will have an impact on your annual salary or potentially your monthly salary. So, thanks again, everybody. This is Mark here at Exotic Car Play Place. Don't be shy, everyone. Come back, hit that subscribe button, share, like, comment, and we'll definitely see you on the next video. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.